The Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. It's more than a museum, it's a shrine where legacies live forever, where bronze busts immortalize the warriors who defined generations of football. To be enshrined is to be deemed one of the greatest to ever play the game, but not every player who reshaped the gridiron ends up there. Not every hero finds his bust in Canton. Some careers burn bright but are tragically short-lived. Others were drowned out by media narratives, playoff losses, or the unfortunate timing of playing in small markets or on losing teams. Some broke records, some redefined positions, some inspired fear in opponents and admiration in fans. And yet, when the votes were tallied, their names didn't make the cut. You might think the hall is reserved only for champions or stat leaders, but the reality is far more complex. A career-altering injury, off-the-field controversies, lack of rings, or even the politics of the voting committee. These factors can all stand in the way of greatness being properly recognized. So today we're giving these players their flowers. These are the athletes who were built for the Hall of Fame, whose talent, production, and impact should have punched a ticket to Canton. Some were eventually inducted after years, maybe decades of waiting. Others are still waiting, even as fans and analysts cry foul. This is not just a list, it's a reminder that greatness doesn't always get a statue, but it should never be forgotten. These are the top 10 NFL players built for the Hall of Fame, but never made it. Number 10. Ken Anderson, quarterback, Cincinnati Bengals, 1971 to 1986. Ken Anderson is the textbook definition of an underrated quarterback. Drafted in the 3rd round in 1971, Anderson spent his entire 16-year career with the Bengals. In 1981, he led the team to its first Super Bowl appearance and won League MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and the NFL passing title. He led the NFL in completion percentage 3 times and was a 4-time Pro Bowler. In 1982, he set a record for completion percentage in a single season, 70.6%, a mark that stood for over 25 years. According to Sports Illustrated, 2017, Anderson's career completion rate of 59.3% was revolutionary for his era. He threw for over 32,000 yards with 197 touchdowns. Those might seem modest by today's standards, but they were elite numbers in the 70s and early 80s. The Bengals' lack of playoff success and market visibility likely contributed to his Hall snub. Still, his legacy remains etched in football history. Number 9. Otis Taylor, WR, Kansas City Chiefs, 1965 to 1975. Otis Taylor was a key weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs in the late AFL and early NFL merger years. A 2-time AFL All-Star and 3-time Pro Bowler, Taylor was essential to the Chiefs' Super Bowl IV victory. In that game, he made a 46-yard touchdown reception that sealed the win against the heavily favored Minnesota Vikings. In 1971, Taylor led the NFL in receiving yards with 1,110. Over his 11-year career, he amassed over 7,300 receiving yards and 57 touchdowns. Huge numbers for an era that prioritized the run. The Kansas City Star editorialized in 2019 that Taylor was a forgotten giant, a pioneer for modern wide receiver play with his blend of size, speed, and acrobatics. Despite his accolades and influence, Taylor remains on the outside looking in. He passed away in 2023 without seeing his name in Canton. Number 8. Cliff Branch, WR, Oakland Raiders, 1972 to 1985. Speed. That's the one word that defined Cliff Branch. The Raiders' deep threat from the 70s and early 80s was one of the most explosive receivers in NFL history. Branch was a 3-time Super Bowl champion and a 4-time Pro Bowler. He recorded over 8,600 receiving yards and 67 touchdowns in his career. He led the NFL in receiving yards in 1974 and twice led in touchdown receptions. His postseason resume was equally impressive, 1,289 yards and 5 touchdowns in 22 playoff games. In 2019, NFL Network named him one of the top 10 players not in the Hall of Fame. Branch passed away in 2019 and was posthumously inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2022. But for decades, fans and analysts clamored for his inclusion. Number 7. Lester Hayes, CB, Oakland LA Raiders, 1977 to 1986. Lester Hayes was the shutdown corner before the term became common. Known for slathering on stickum and locking down receivers, Hayes had one of the greatest seasons ever in 1980 with 13 interceptions, tied for second most just in a single season. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time Super Bowl champion, and the 1980 NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Hayes' coverage skills forced offensive coordinators to abandon entire sides of the field. He and Hall of Famer Mike Haynes formed arguably the most dominant cornerback duo in league history. Yet the Hall snub persists, with many pointing to the controversial use of stickum as a reason voters have kept him out. In a 2021 feature by The Athletic, Hayes was called a Hall of Famer in everything but plaque. Number 6, Sterling Sharpe. WR, Green Bay Packers, 1,988 to 1,994. Few players burned as brightly and briefly as Sterling Sharpe. In just 7 seasons, Sharpe tallied over 8,000 receiving yards and 65 touchdowns. He led the league in receptions 3 times, including a then-record 112 catches in 1993. Sharpe made 5 Pro Bowls and 3 first-team All-Pro selections. In 1992, he led the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, the rare receiving Triple Crown. Brett Favre, a Hall of Famer himself, once said, "Sterling Sharpe is the best player I ever played with." Sharpe's career was cut short by a neck injury in 1994. Had he played another 4 to 5 seasons at even 80% production, he'd be a lock for Canton. In 2022, CBS Sports ranked him number 1 among receivers not in the Hall. His exclusion remains one of the most discussed snubs in football history. Number 5, Roger Craig, RB, San Francisco 49ers, 1983 to 1993. Roger Craig redefined what it meant to be a dual-threat running back. He became the first player in NFL history to have 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the same season, 1985. A 3-time Super Bowl champion, Craig was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro. His 1988 playoff performance, including 2 touchdowns in Super Bowl 23, helped cement the 49ers dynasty. He finished with over 13,000 total yards and 73 touchdowns, and yet he's still not in the Hall. According to ESPN Stats and Info, no player with his combination of rings, versatility, and postseason production has been snubbed longer. His omission is one of the Hall's biggest oversights. Number 4, Jim Marshall, defensive end, Minnesota Vikings, 1960 to 1979. Jim Marshall was the Iron Man of defensive linemen. He played 282 consecutive games, the most ever by a defensive lineman. A key piece of the Vikings' Purple People Eaters defense, Marshall had 130.5 unofficial sacks and played in 4 Super Bowls. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler and team captain for over a decade. While some remember his infamous wrong way touchdown, his leadership, durability, and productivity far outweigh that single mistake. In 2015, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune wrote, "Marshall is the most deserving Viking not in Canton. He was a foundational piece of one of the league's great defenses, and the Hall has ignored him for decades." Number 3, Steve Tasker, ST/WR, Buffalo Bills, 1985 to 1997. Steve Tasker is arguably the greatest special teams player in NFL history. A 7-time Pro Bowler and 5-time first-team All-Pro, Tasker was a tackling machine and a game changer in punt and kick coverage. During Buffalo's 4 straight Super Bowl runs, Tasker's special teams contributions were instrumental. His blocked punts, open field tackles, and leadership helped create momentum when the Bills needed it most. He redefined what it meant to be a special teams ace, yet has never even made the finalist list for the Hall. In a 2021 piece for NFL.com, analyst Greg Rosenthal called Tasker the Hall of Fame's biggest positional blind spot. Second, Torrey Holt, WR, St. Louis Rams, 1999 to 2009. Part of the famed Greatest Show on Turf, Torrey Holt was as consistent as they come. From 2000 to 2007, Holt posted 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He led the league in receiving yards in 2000 and receptions in 2003. He earned 7 Pro Bowl nods and was a first-team All-Pro in 2003. Holt finished with 13,382 receiving yards, more than Michael Irvin, Calvin Johnson, and Lynn Swann, all Hall of Famers. He was a major factor in the Rams' Super Bowl 34 win, including a clutch touchdown grab. Bleacher Report listed him in their top 5 Hall of Fame snubs in 2020, noting his consistency in high yardage seasons. Number 1, Eric Allen, CB, Philadelphia Eagles, 1988 to 2001. Eric Allen was a shutdown corner long before Revis Island existed. He had 54 career interceptions, 6 Pro Bowl selections, and 3 All-Pro nods. In 1993, he returned 4 interceptions for touchdowns, a single season record record that still stands. He started 204 of 217 games, was a leader in both the Eagles and Saints locker rooms, and contributed to playoff-caliber defenses throughout the 90s. The Philadelphia Inquirer, 2022, noted Allen's omission as borderline criminal, especially given his era of dominance against top-tier receivers like Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin. Even Allen's contemporaries, like Deion Sanders, have publicly vouched for his Hall worthiness. Not everyone gets a bust in Canton, but numbers don't lie, and impact doesn't fade. These 10 men left their fingerprints on the game. Some redefined their position. Others gave us unforgettable playoff moments, legendary seasons, or historic records. And all of them made fans believe. The Hall of Fame is meant to preserve greatness. And while these names might not sit inside that golden shrine, at least not yet, they're already etched in the minds and hearts of football fans forever. If you enjoyed this deep dive into unsung greatness, hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments who you think should be in the Hall of Fame. Until next time, respect the game, remember the legends.